State, ministers, diplomats, distinguished guests, members of the media, and those viewing online. I'd like to say a good afternoon, or I suspect I should say buenas noches, buenas tardes. Welcome to Barbados, and welcome to the Lloyd Erskine Sandiford Center for this special press conference being hosted on the heels of the 8th CARICOM-Cuba Summit. With us this afternoon, I'd like to introduce our head table. With us, we have His Excellency, the Chairman of CARICOM, Mr. Chandra Prasad Santoki, President of Suriname. We also have with us Her Excellency Barnett, Secretary General of CARICOM, the Caribbean Community. With us also we have the Honorable Mia Omar Motley, Prime Minister of Barbados, and we also have with us His Excellency Miguel Diaz-Canel, President of the Republic of Cuba. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce the Chairman to deliver opening remarks, after which we will have the President of Cuba, who will also deliver some remarks, and after which we will have questions from the members of the media fielded. So without further ado, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Of the press media. Concluded our CARICOM-Cuba Summit, and I can inform you that we had a most productive meeting with our Cuban brothers and sisters, and with this meeting, modify the familiar bonds what we have which have been built over the last 50 years. We have concluded our summit with a declaration which has been adopted, and this declaration will guide us to our new future. We'll strengthen our future relation as we move on to another 50 years of close collaboration and cooperation, and this declaration will be distributed shortly. Our cooperation in many areas has been extended, particularly in health, and President Diaz-Canel.
Presidente Díaz-Canel les hablará un poco más acerca de este tema. También hemos propuesto una estrecha
area of agriculture, including the establishment of a food terminal to provide a consistent supply of food items to Cuba as CARICOM moves to increase its production to meet its 25% reduction of food imports by 2025. Cuba has also been invited to participate in the CARICOM Ministerial Task Force spearheading this initiative. Cuba has also offered great assistance in the area of disaster management as we both face the existential threat posed by climate change. These areas proposed are of benefit of the community, and we look forward to implementing these arrangements. And I will refer to the President Diaz-Canel to provide more information on the assistance as offered by Cuba to the Caribbean community. We have taken the opportunity to reiterate the community's strong rejection on the unfair, unjust, and illegal embargo against Cuba, and assure Cuba of our unwavering support. With these few words, I will ask now the President, my colleague, Diaz-Canel, to make his remarks. President.
Muchas gracias, Presidente. Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to first of all thank PM Amor Moldy and her team and her people for hosting this fraternal summit meeting. Even if it is traditional that summit meetings are held every 3 years, this was a special event. It was called upon a proposal by Prime PM Mia Motley in order to commemorate also the 50th anniversary of relations between Cuba and CARICOM, which are being marked next December 8th. And it was only this a summit of celebration. There was also a summit in which we have agreed on specific projects that will benefit our peoples. I want to also thank the heads of state and government of CARICOM and the Secretariat of CARICOM and the heads of delegations and Secretariat staff that were present at this meeting and who worked very hard in order to generate the successful results from this summit. Our people admires the permanent solidarity of the Caribbean with people. Our people feels that our relations with the people of the Caribbean are one of brothers, and this is the way we have felt since the last few days when we arrived in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and yesterday we arrived here in Barbados. The 8th summit made in Cuba CARICOM also allowed for youthful exchanges, and it also confirmed that the system of relations between our governments and peoples are a valid model. And it was also ratified that the relations are based on friendship, cooperation, and solidarity, and mutual respect. We made a commitment to continuing to strengthen our existing relations between our governments, among our governments, in the strong belief that our links cannot be broken. On our side, we reaffirm our readiness to cooperate to the extent of our ability with the sister nations of the Caribbean. We also confirmed our accompaniment of the Caribbean in its fair call for historic reparation for the damages caused by colonialism and slavery. We also ratified our claim, our call for fair, special, and differential treatment of the small island states of the Caribbean. And we also discussed about the serious challenges of climate change, the consequences of which are affecting the development and well-being of our peoples. In this respect, we also presented some proposals of mutual benefit in the area of mitigation of climate change and disaster reduction. We also ratified our offer in the area of human resource training and medical assistance that make a contribution to the development programs in CARICOM in this area. And we have a new proposals on this. This was a pleasant feeling to find among the participants several graduates who had the persons who had studied in Cuba. Some of them are already holding senior responsibilities, such as prime ministers in their nations. We were also able to confirm that there are opportunities for the implementation of joint projects in various areas. We expressed to the heads of delegation our appreciation and thanks for their strong position of rejection of the blockade being imposed on my people and the unfair inclusion of Cuba in an unilateral list of states that sponsor terrorism. We confirm that the nations of CARICOM will continue to rely on Cuba. These are our assessments on this successful summit meeting between Cuba and CARICOM. Thank you very much.
At this time, I'd like to invite members of the media, your questions. You can field them. But just ask that you first indicate your name and your media house, if you do have one, so we can have the questions appropriately responded to. Thank you. Okay.
Calvin from Nation News.
Just step to the microphone, Calvin. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. Good afternoon to the panel. Calvin from Nation News. Including partnerships in agriculture, etc. However, absent was some details. Could you drill down? Okay. Could you drill down on the actual details of these agreements and as well as some timelines, especially as it relates to CARICOM food security as well?
In the CARICOM, we have several mechanisms which are in charge of initiating several policy sectors. And those initiatives are divided into a quasi-cabinet. and the quasi-cabinet on agriculture, we have the lead head, that's the president of Guyana. And he had presented to the CARICOM a short-term, medium-term, and long-term strategy on agriculture, agribusiness for the Caribbean. And that strategy has been approved by the heads on the Conference of the Heads. The strategy is comprising all aspects of the agriculture, but also strategy how to reduce the import of products from outside the region. So what we are doing now with this summit is to include Cuba in this strategy. And the timeline and the actions, those are available. As the Secretary General can provide you all the details. I don't know if all these documents are online already, but now we have decided that Cuba can benefit also from this strategy.
Sobre esto quisiera explicar lo siguiente.
At this point, I wanted to raise the following points. The agriculture was addressed very comprehensively at our meeting, because we not only talked about agriculture, we also talked about the need for food sovereignty in our nations, which is a more comprehensive concept, which goes beyond the development of agriculture because it includes the agricultural development. Further to the discussions we held, I found that there is political readiness and there is an understanding among all of the leaders of our nations of the strategic nature of this topic for Caribbean integration and for our joint steps. And we all found that this topic is strategic so that we can actually develop our countries. And there is also a proposal from Guyana, from the president of Guyana, to set up a ministerial task force in which it was asked that Cuba will be a member of this task force, and that we have agreed in order to discuss all of the potential areas as well as complementarity opportunities in the area of agriculture among our nations. And in our case, we indicated that we have some experiences we can share, and we have a policy in place for food sovereignty and education, and we have supported this policy with a government program, and recently we passed a piece of legislation in support of that policy and that program, which is the law on food sovereignty. And we also have a number of technologies that we have developed on the basis from our scientific facilities, and we have implemented science and technology for the purpose of food production. And we also indicated that we have a specific experience here. That is, at a time in which we have been faced with a flared-up U.S. blockade that has prevented us from accessing financing in order to import inputs required for agriculture. We have also developed concepts of agroecology. So we are relying on bioproducts and a harmonious management with the environment in order to prevent pollution. We can also generate quality products and organic products and products which yield is very appropriate if we manage our crops and soils properly with these technologies that we have developed. And we have also learned from other countries in these technologies, and the presentations that were made by the participants showed experiences from different countries that can make contributions to this integration that we have set out for ourselves in terms of food sovereignty. We can bring on board here from productions. We can also find business models through barter and other arrangements that will help the region escalate to a different level, and then we will have not only food sovereignty in our regions, but also food sovereignty in the entire Caribbean region.
Thank you so much.
Muchas gracias.
Buenas tardes, presidente.
Good afternoon, President Demetrio Villarrutia from the Cuban media. You said, President, before you came to
que
this
tenía
summit
varias
meeting,
expectativas. en un contexto donde nuestro país
in which
celebra
our country is marking 50 years of establishing diplomatic relations with 4 countries in the Caribbean. My question is as follows. Your expectations have been met? Have they been met? And to what extent have they been met in this summit meeting? I will give you my opinion here, but I think that me and other participants here and the president here can also offer their impressions about the summit meeting here. For us, this summit meeting was a desired and applauded meeting, as called in by me, and many of us came here with a lot of commitment, and our expectation was the way we will be marking the 50 years of diplomatic relations between the Caribbean and Cuba. And on the other hand, we wanted to make sure that the summit meeting will not be one of commemoration, but rather a summit meeting that will leave an imprint and a line of projects to be implemented among our countries. And I think that the summit meeting has exceeded our expectations. First of all, and this I have shared, I have said this at the summit meeting itself. When we see this dialogue and these discussions among the Caribbean nations and Cuba, we find that there are 2 elements that are the thread of everything that we are doing in our cooperation, our understanding. That is the legacy from the foundation of these relations 50 years ago, the visions arising from 4 Caribbean leaders and Commander-in-Chief Fidel Castro. And that legacy is there because it has been given continuity by all of the Caribbean nations and Cuba all throughout these years. And that was clearly established, that was properly addressed by the PMs and the presidents and the foreign ministers and other ministers who represented their respective countries here. And we also have the solidarity, the principle of solidarity we've shared. And we have shared a principle of mutual solidarity, which is not just to give what we have, which is not to give what we have plenty of, but share whatever little we have. That is how we coordinate positions when we are being threatened, when we have issues, how we feel the problems, how the people have, and we say, we feel for you the same way you feel for you. Every problem you have in the Caribbean, you are our problems too, and vice versa. And I think that in this initial expectation of the summit meeting has exceeded our expectation, and secondly, the other expectations, what we were going to do at the summit meeting, so that the summit meeting will not end up in dead letter or just speeches or proposals. First of all, we have seen a review. We have reviewed everything we have been doing over the last few years, and new projects are being put in the pipeline, and new proposals are being made by different nations in the Caribbean in order to expand the scope of the areas in which we can cooperate. And we see new areas of cooperations, and we are also reinforcing the areas in which we already have cooperation. And the summit meeting has also heard interesting initiatives such as the initiative proposed by MIA and the proposal on the food sovereignty that was brought in by the Guyanese delegation, and another proposal, another initiative from PM MIA to mark October 6th as the day, Cuba CARICOM Day Against Terrorism. And I think that in order to complete all of this that has exceeded expectations is that our technical teams and our experts and our ministries will make progress within the short term. We can implement everything we have set out for ourselves.
to everyone.
Buenas.
Wendy Burke from the Caribbean Broadcasting Corporation. This first question is addressed to President Diaz-Canel, and the second one will be to Mr. Santoki. Okay, Mr. President, you spoke about the use of more renewable technologies, and I just want to know, in terms of Barbados and Cuba sharing in this area, especially as we move toward 2030 and the UN goals, how we are looking to integrate renewables into the industries which are now flourishing within Cuba, such as health, etc.
Bueno, ante todo,
First of all, I wanted to draw a distinction here. Our nations are highly reliant on the imported energy because most of our nations do not have, oil fields or reservoirs, but our nations in the Caribbean do have a lot of sunshine and a lot of wind that we can rely on, and there is awareness. There's awareness, and there's also a willingness, which is consistent and responsible, to implement projects that are environmentally friendly, and in that respect, we can count the renewable energy projects. And in our region, we have a potential to implement renewable energy, such as solar panels and wind energy, which are cleaner energies. And we all understand that the energy mixes of our countries need to change, and they need to rely more and more on renewable energy. There is a Caribbean Institute on renewable energy, and there are also Cuban R&D centers and Cuban experts who are doing a fine job in cooperation with this Caribbean Institute, and these research projects and all of these knowledge are being shared among all of the Caribbean nations. So what would be our main limitations here? In order to buy these technologies and implement programs on renewable energy, we will need financing. And PM Mia today made a denunciation today in how the hegemonism of the superpowers is imposing restrictions on the economic governance and the financing available to our countries. And on this basis, proposals are being made that are included in the wind initiative. Therefore, if we can articulate everything that we need to defend in terms of our right to be to develop economically, financially, without discrimination is recognized, and all of the knowledge that we have in the region. Then, if we can combine all of these things, then we can pursue strategies for the implementation of renewable energy in all of our countries.
Thank you so much, Randy, for your question, and thank you so much to your excellencies. Thank you for the ladies and gentlemen for joining us this afternoon, members of the media, those joining us via streaming. Again, I know that much has been said. As you've heard, much has been achieved. I think that is worthy of commendation at this 8th CARICOM-Cuba Summit. So once again, thank you, and do have a good evening.